let's see. We are today inviting Tony to share his journey. And I'm just really happy that, we're actually all here sharing the space together. It's not on Zoom or, calling in or something like that. It's a real treat. And I know avid radio listeners really prefer to have, a face in front of the mic for that good audio clarity. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. I love proximity here. It's the first time we actually, Nona and I share the same room, in terms of our broadcasting. We've done this on Zoom, so thank you so much, Nona. It's great to be in your presence.
Oh, likewise. My pleasure. It's, summer has come and I've got some more time, and it's really lovely to be able to, when you're in the same room together, you're actually feeling each other's vibrations, speaking of energy and heart space. And so they've shown with heart math that you can really be in each other's field. So I'm really excited to be here.
We're resonating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're resonating with all you out there too. So you feel free near the end of the show to call in as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll invite callers in maybe about the half-hour mark. And it's a really it's a treat actually to be able to provide that as well, because sometimes we have to do a pre-recorded show. We don't have time or have the access or ability to talk with listeners who want to call in. So I want to invite that too a little bit later.
Well, warm up your voices out there too.
Warm up your voices before you call.
And that's part of Tony's journey as well, right? The voice, the opening of the voice and the singing and the music. So I'm really interested in seeing where that comes in your life path and learning more about how all of it unfolded, how that unique combination of martial arts and music all happened, how you ended up here in Southern Humble of all places on earth, and how we get to have your lovely presence here. So how did you want to kick it off, Hobbs?
Well, when we talk about Qigong, we're talking about I like to describe it as the exchange of energy. And energy comes in all forms. And, in nature, Nona and I, we just took a trip recently and we went up to the Alps and found this just beautiful, natural, serene environment where I was just amazed and struck by the symmetry, the balance, the sort of harmony just of like the smallest plant matter and the smallest spaces. And I had to keep reminding myself that there's no landscaper coming up. Like, it's all just natural and so beautiful and in balance and symmetrical. And I just kept reminding myself of that. And nature is that symbol for balance and harmony for us. So I like to use nature as that sort of lens or, the vision. And in Qigong, I like to talk about the exchange, between earth and man and heaven. And a lot of times I live in and meditate in the space of man to man, person to person, interpersonal exchange. And Nona and I often live in that space as well, as we're often bumping up against one another in everyday life, right? This segues into your upbringing, how you were brought up, and being involved with the military, and the martial arts aspects that you and I, sort of share and riff off. There's themes there that often come up in our discussions, in our interviews with other people, and we value our training, our practice, our discipline, and we also value the moral path. And so with that's going to, I think, introduce and set the tone for our discussion today.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think you're talking about exchange of energy, and that exchange is sometimes, it's not up to us. Sometimes most of the time, actually, it's imposed by the environment that we are occupying. And my first 20 years of my life were occupied in Beirut, Lebanon. And if you do not know the history of Beirut, Lebanon, the civil war started in 1975, and the civil war was absolutely brutal, and what you get when you have a civil war is you get your neighbor shooting at you or trying to kill you, basically. And with that, you don't have much to look forward to, except then trying to keep yourself alive and trying to resist the opportunities of death. And but it makes that world so much more basic, because there are conflict is very easy. Conflict is a singular path. You're either trying to kill somebody or somebody's trying to kill you. So there's no maturity or inner intelligence there. There's like absolutely no presence of trying to figure out how you can overcome that. And life and death, war is very basic and very simple, and I think that's why we have so much of it, because it is an easy path. It is really the simplest path to go to, is to go to war with something. And most of the time we're embattled within ourselves. Peace, on the other hand, requires tremendous maturity, requires tremendous evolution, requires progress like no other, where we experience that in the martial arts and in the proper exchange of energy. And once we start to know what we are acting on behalf of within ourselves, and we have removed ourselves from the environment, the toxic environment or a war environment, then you'll have the opportunity to actually cultivate something a little bit more, conducive to moving forward, and a longevity of thought or a longevity of dream. And the way I managed that, besides the fact that we were taking fire daily on a daily basis, and it was bombs, rockets, mortar shells, grenades, RPGs, 50 caliber. I was wounded. My first gunshot was when I was 14, and that was like the first time I experienced that. I've experienced tremendous amount of violence up until to that point, and actually until I left Lebanon, there was not a day where I weren't fully on guard on all levels, from all directions. You never knew where it's going to come at you, and you never knew who's going to show up from behind the concrete wall and take you out. So the place where I found the greatest shelter was music, and I taught myself how to play the guitar. That journey itself had become the journey of learning. I did not have a teacher, and so I got myself to figure out how to actually come upon the things that make music. So found few books and went on trying to figure it out here and there. My best friend was the cassette player, because we also didn't get much music. The Lebanese airport was closed, so there was not much exchange with the world. So we had very few things to live on, and the things that I lived on, I kind of, exhausted basically to get to where I'm at now. So my musical journey gave me that sense of evolution and sense of maturity, because, as you know, the guitar is an incredibly powerful instrument. It's an incredibly universal instrument. The guitar has the capacity to teach you so many great things about yourself and about the world, and has unlike other instruments, you can go to the same place in so many different directions, in so many different pathways, so many different patterns, and that in itself expanded my vision into the world. And it's a great daydreaming instrument, so I would find my peace there. I went to music to cultivate my inner peace, and I would say if I did not have that growing up, if I didn't cultivate that aspect of it, I would probably would be lost to violence 110%, because I would not have had anything to parallel that which was going on in order for me to arrive at a place of deeper thought or maturity of thought, or a place to evoke my emotions without having to take them out on somebody else. And so in that form, I was able to find myself and protect myself, and that was the way that it was my ticket out of Lebanon. Basically, it was my ticket out of the underworld, as I call it. And I got my visa I called the music school in Los Angeles, and I got accepted on the phone. I didn't speak English, but the centraliste, as we call her, you'd go to a phone agency to call internationally, and she had seen me play on TV, and she said, "Oh no, he's a very great player." So, and then I got accepted without having to send any demo or anything, and I took all of my inheritance money, which was not much, came up to ultimately to $6,000, and my school tuition was $4,000. My ticket was $900. So I started my life at 20 in California, in Hollywood of all places, with just basically $1,100, and that was 1984. And music really opened the path. Without music, I would not have gone anywhere. As a matter of fact, still till now, it's still everything is my whole world is open because of music, because of that degree of connection with resonance and vibration that continuously keeps on bringing out it exfoliates all the dissonances in the world that I witness, that I'm trying to overcome continuously. Your past never leaves you 100%. My whole family is still in Lebanon. I'm the only one who actually immigrated. So my heart is still there, because I hear so much about their struggle, about their continuous having to still live what I don't live anymore. And so it's tough, It's never that easy to feel again, because I know what it feels like for them over there. So.
This is Chi Talks with Javi, Nona, and Tony Khalife. We're diving in today and hearing about Tony's journey.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say I'm so glad that you've made it out of the underbellies, and that you are sharing your practice of exfoliation
Yes.
with the world. It's a beautiful thing to witness, and I would have never guessed that you've gone through such a extended traumatic period of your very young, life, early development, because you carry yourself so gracefully and with a lot of openness and kindness. And I know a lot of people struggle with trauma, and there's a lot of more attention in the world to that process and how complicated it can be. And it seems like your key tool has been music. And I know a lot of our listeners and the K-Med community, although they might not have had that extreme trauma of war, they have a lot of people can relate to that story of music being there for them in whatever moments in their life. And so just to kind of witness in you the depth of that power of music and vibration, it's an interesting thing to grapple with and witness in terms of how we move forward with so much trauma in our world, and looking at things like music therapy, art therapy, and whether there's a lot of attention on that or not in our society. I think maybe you have some insight into how you feel our society addresses trauma and where you would like to see that go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think anybody on this earth is spared trauma, and it runs in everybody, whether it's it's in the household, or it is in the community, or it is in the world. Nobody is really spared at all. And I think the idea of when you're trying to transform yourself, the things that surround you in the beginning are overwhelming, and they're continuously eating away at you until you develop the muscle tone in order to eat back at it, and then that becomes your feeding in order to overcome. And the best way that I found to arrive at that was in trying to transform whatever emotion and feeling I was going through the learning of music. And I still practice every day for hours, and I've been behind the guitar for more than 50 years now, and I still spend 5 to 6 hours a day just on the guitar. And and I always say this: the extent of my practice is directly related to the extent of my trauma. So the reason why I don't stop practicing, because if I stop practicing, I feel like there will be a re-emergence of that trauma, because for some reason I don't feel like it leaves you, and because the world is also perpetually, continuously recreating that sense of trauma with everybody. You look at the news, and all of a sudden you feel your energy is just coming back into that same place, resonating with that same frequency. So it takes that effort. It takes going back to the roots of what brings you back into peace in order to kind of recalibrate yourself, resonate into the frequency of the heart, and be able to be okay and trust the world and trust that which is coming, that everyone will find their peace. And but I think the greatness of America, and I think America is really an incredible place to live, and especially California. And the reason for that is you get to get exposed to things here you never ever get exposed to in any other country. For example, the level of musicianship that is in this country is beyond anywhere else. All the masters from all around the world come here in order to create a greater world for them and their music. In the Indian music tradition, you got the best musicians on the planet living in California. And in terms of the martial arts as well, you got some of the greatest, most amazing martial artists in the world, and Qigong healers live in California. You got the greatest minds, and it's limitless, the kind of energy you can try to kind of become part of in order to help you turn over your life. And it's so available. The exposure here is beyond anywhere else, and there's a thing for everybody. And the willingness to transform your life in the beginning would seem so overwhelming, because it is overwhelming. You basically are continuously visited by feelings and information and things that you cannot unsee anymore, and they are plaguing at you. They are pushing you back. They are trying to digress you. So it requires that feeling of staying steadfast, and the way you find that steadfastness is through community and like-minded people. And if you're trying to overcome the fear of any form of fear, but mostly, let's say, a fear of being taken over by someone, which energetically what happens to us, the first thing that happens to us is energy comes into us and we are overwhelmed, and all of a sudden we no longer are present within our own feeling. We're present in that energy that has that current that has taken over us. And in Bagua, which has been my discipline, we do something where it's called ko. The ko is where you turn around and you do the exact same thing you were doing, but in the opposite direction. And that in itself is a key to transforming your energy. So if a current is coming at you in a particular direction, you just go into the same current into the other direction, and that helps immediately balance and recalibrate the same energetics that was trying to take you one way to take you to the other way. And eventually, as you keep practicing that aspect of it, then you'll have nothing going on that would plague you long enough in order to take you out of your center. And so you start to develop ways in different palm changes, different movements in order to come from one side of yourself into the other side of yourself effortlessly. And then with that, you co-create your own inner peace. And you can do that in anything, in music, the voice, especially the voice. We talked about, you asked, earlier about the voice being a real incredible, actually, asset for evolution. It's one of the only unique things that we do that separates us from everything else. And everybody's voice, you can tell just hearing somebody's voice immediately who they are. It's our true signature, and because it carries with it our feelings, it carries with it our experience, it carries with it our learnings, it carries everything with it. And arriving at a place for which you're aware of your own voice, and which you cultivate through singing, and then that whole aspect of the breath control, the pitch control, and because there's nothing there that you can touch and fix with your hand. Your vocal folds have no sensory nerve endings. Your diaphragm has no sensory nerve endings. So you can't put your finger on it and say, well, I need this to the right or I need this to the left. The only way you could manage and manipulate that through your thoughts. And then the way your voice sounds is dependent on the way you feel, is dependent on the way you think of yourself. So the more you try to correct your pitch and correct your breathing, the more you come at a place of awareness of the thoughts and the energetics, the feeling that is currently going through you. The more command you have over it, and the more you can determine whether you're going to peace or war with yourself. And it's really the greatest asset, because you can carry it everywhere with you. You are carrying it everywhere with you unavoidably, and you have to come to peace within yourself in every moment of your thoughts. When you're thinking about something and you're trying to relate something to somebody, and you're present in that, as we talked about last show, which was a great show, by the way. And I'm thankful to be here. Thank you, Javi, and thank you, Nona. You are present with that which you are articulating, and you can tell in the moment how that delivery is affecting the person you're articulating with or communicating with. And based on that, you can dial your own feelings, and you can dial the way you want to deliver your message, and you can sense if this message is creating fear in the other or it's creating peace in the other. And based on that, it gives you a proper feedback, and in real time you can readjust, realign, you can reinvigorate yourself to have a direction that is so much more, it yields far more gratification, as opposed to your nerves are just like starting to shiver. And I carried a lot of angst in my language early on. I mean, it took me 25 years in order to come to a place for which I can actually think. And I didn't speak English when I showed up. When I got off the boat in California, it was actually a plane, but I like to call it a boat. I didn't speak any English, and I knew a few Beatles song titles, and that's basically how I communicated in the beginning. And it took a long time to dial the language to a direction for which it evokes peace. And I used to scare a lot of people continuously just by my presence. I carried an aura of violence that was undoubtedly scary, I would say. And anybody that knew me in the early days can tell you. But I had also that parallel. Well, when they heard me play, all of a sudden things like, is this the same guy?
This is Talking Chi with Javi and Nona, and we're talking with our other co-host today, Tony Khalife, diving into Tony's world, Tony's mind,
his journey.
And and all of his healing tools.
Gosh, there's so many things that
Many threads.
many threads,
Yeah.
many threads. My brain, but I think the place where my brain kind of just expanded just now, listening to you speaking about tuning the vocal cords and the nerve endings, and the fact that you need to really use your emotional awareness and your mind's strength to create that change, very physically and energetically, so that the vibration that comes out is affected. And that was really kind of eye-opening. My brain's still grappling with that process and trying to connect it to the Qigong lens, and really seeing that you're regulating the physical with the mind. And actually, we kind of do that with all parts of our body, right? The mind needs to act first before the body can follow. And we're so hand oriented. That's one of our species, greatest ability, but to really have to focus that mind action physically, internally, which is what we're attempting to do in Qigong all the time with healing practices, but also if you're going in the martial direction and how it manifests effectively externally also, it makes it a very real kind of feedback mechanism to be able to hear the sound vibration in response to that mental emotional action. You're like, it's the most, you say it's not tangible, but I guess it's the closest thing to something tangible you'll get, because you'll hear it in the sound, you'll hear it in the energy of the singer. We all know the shivers that we get when you hear the greatest, singers in the world. You're brought to the same emotional vibration as that they are evoking. And so it seems very powerful to talk about the mind in that way, and how much it's involved with the development of a singer's power, and how it's in a way, a very spiritual practice.
If I may, to bring it back to Qigong, our teacher often asks us, do you have your life, or does your life have you? And that kind of harkens back to growing up in the environment or in conditions where you don't have the ability to control per se, and you're the victim of an environment or your environment. And being able to transcend that. You talked about your musical journey to transcend the underbelly, known as said, or the underworld. You said, Tony. And then so I think what I hear him say about how he presents himself, and then the voice, his aura, it requires a lot of self-awareness. And then, so how am I presenting? How am I speaking? And then what is my emotion? How am I talking to others and to myself? And in Qigong, we talk about the 5 regulations: regulation of the body, mind, breath, mind, qi, and spirit. And the power of the mind. And Tony, you described, using your mind to regulate your vocal cords, regulate your diaphragm, and that also extends out to the fingers on the frets and whatnot. But all for the sake of the thoughts and the heart space, right? And so in Qigong, we talk about how do you use the mind to regulate the mind, so that you have your mind and something or someone else doesn't have your mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really the same process. It's exactly the same process. I've experienced that through my Bagua practice, because if your mind is occupied by something else, your circle is very wavery, and you tip off of your center, and your changes are not accurate, and that happens. That can happen on a daily basis. Nothing. Again, nobody is spared energetically, because we live in a world that currents are continuously happening, and we are sensitive human beings, and we take things in. Um, in Bagua we say that we know the power of a Bagua master through their voice before they even move, and because the Taoist practice, the Bagua Taoist practice, was always accompanied by vocal practices. So the Taoist masters would walk the circle while they're chanting. They wouldn't walk the circle silently. And there is a reason for that. There's totally a reason for that. First, you're talking about once that diaphragm is engaged, that means your dantian is engaged. And as you are pulsating that energy forward, that means you're pushing with your dantian forward. So your movement is forward as you push in the breath, and you're controlling the diaphragm, you're controlling your dantian, and that becomes the air bubble that you live in, that makes you equally as light and equally as hard. And so with that development, then you're basically you gain the light body. There are two schools of martial arts. There's the healing martial arts, and there are the killing martial arts. And they say that the difference is really pressure. How much pressure you put in your moves, and can determine whether you are going to be at a killing point or at a healing point. And it took a long time, definitely, to develop from the killing palm to the healing palm. And now most of my practice is really the healing palm. And I no longer have the shadow boxing in my mind, or have an opponent in my mind, which I think also age has a lot to do with it. I just turned 60, so that has a lot to do with kind of harmonizing the old and overcoming the old. But the thing about singing, because you're dealing with communicating to the world in an entirely different form, and that communication requires you being really, really utterly present, because you are putting so many things in concert together. And as you're putting these things in concert together, you are also focusing on you being the instrument, and you turn yourself into an energetic being that is continuously vibrating, but vibrating correctly on the correct pitch. That pitch correction that is mandatory for any singer, because you certainly wouldn't enjoy somebody singing out of tune. It will make you feel uneasy. That pitch correction holds with it a level of awareness like nothing else that you would do in anything, because it's like being on a tightrope, and once you find that pitch, you have to hold that pitch, and once you hold that pitch, then you have cadences that come together. And those cadences are a contingency of notes playing together to create dissonance, and then to create back to harmony. So you're at any given song that you hear and that makes you feel really good, you've already gone through multiple different evolutions of dissonance to harmony, dissonance to harmony, dissonance to harmony. That's why we arrive at it with such a feeling of fulfillment. But when you're doing that within yourself, you're being incredibly aware of the dissonances, because you're touching those dissonances with your hand, but you can only touch them long enough so that they don't zap your entire being. And then you have to have the knowledge for which you can take them back to harmony. So that level of intricacy that you're over continuously moving in your mind, and you're trying at the same time to bring your heart into, which is the heart determines the outcome, and basically the heart brings you back into harmony. And you have to feel that you're really aching to bring this back into peace. And I would say that it is probably the most hardest practice I've ever experienced, and because it does require all of that, and anything can come into your mind and basically exile you away from that, and you'd have to find your way back. The returning becomes a lot quicker over the years because you're not being swayed too much away from your center, and the martial arts and the Qigong really help in giving your voice tremendous strength, tremendous longevity, tremendous way of being able to continue with that steady mind and steadfast focus in order to hold that breath on that pitch, on that note. And those notes can become really, really complex depending on the terrain that you're trying to traverse with your melodics to arrive to your harmony. And I would say not being present in your voice would be the greatest disservice you could do to what you create in the world. Because as we know, the throat chakra is our first interaction with the world. That's the thing that brings us, that's our vibrational realm. We utter it, and therefore it comes into existence. And if we're not aware of that, then we are not aware of the things that we're acting on their behalf. It could be a lot of trauma, a lot of things that we've been taken in our journey to, and then when we are doing the same, we're just giving the same in return. We're not really coming to a place of amelioration of our thoughts, trying to find the pitch for which the vibration and the resonance of this thought and how it affects us. And so with that, I think that's why it is the hardest thing to do, because you are investigating yourself. You're continuously under investigation. You're continuously trying to find your breath. You're continuously trying to find the pitch. You're continuously trying to eliminate the things that are trying to sway you off that tightrope in order to be present, in order to deliver the highest possible vibration that you're trying to deliver, provided you're seeking peace. If you're not seeking peace, it's very easy to just blabber on and create a lot of dissonance in people. That doesn't need much evolution and much practice, because we are basically surrounded with that energy.
Which brings it, kind of reminds me what you said at the very beginning, where you said that violence and war, that's the easy path. That's the simplest form of what you could possibly be doing with how we're interacting, or your relationship with yourself is taking that path of violence. And just as you said, like, none of us are free of some kind of trauma. We're also not free of some kind of violence within us. It's very primal and human, and that the possibility of that is always there. And we study nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg, and he talks about how, violence is not just violent acts, but those have a seed within violent thoughts and intentions and ideas that precede the violent, not just actions, but words, and the way that you are acting towards others and towards yourselves too. A lot of people are violent toward themselves and they don't even realize that's there. And you pointed out, provided people are seeking a path to self-peace. A lot of us, yes, we can claim, yes, we'd love to see peace in the world, but we really need to realize that it's each human's journey to find peace within that has to come first. And I wanted to ask you about your journey, your Bagua journey. So music came very early on. It seemed like, when you come in contact with Bagua, and how was that journey?
Yeah, totally. I was actually, I started martial arts in Lebanon. I took Kyokushinkai and for about 6-7 years. Growing up in Lebanon, and then when I came to America, I definitely maintained that same process. But then I got exposed to Bagua. I was 27, and there was one of my guitar students came one day and he says, I met this great Bagua teacher. And the thing about Bagua, when I heard the word Bagua, all of a sudden everything lit up. It seemed like it's something that I'm like, what is that? Who is that? Where is that? And it was the first time I've ever heard of Bagua. And the Sifu, his name was Quinsai Ron Zhou. He was from Taiwan. And and the classes were in San Francisco. I didn't have a car at that time. I was living in Palo Alto, so I would take the train and then the bus to go to classes. I spent about a year with Quinsai Ron Zhou. There were only a few of us in class, maybe 6 or 7. And basically that's where I got exposed to Bagua. And it was incredibly, I would say, it was nothing I ever expected, and it was everything I ever wanted. And his presence was just superb. He didn't speak any English. His wife would translate for him, and we basically we just follow the moves. And so with Quinsai Ron Zhou, I actually got to experience the spiritual aspect of martial arts because I did not know that existed. I always thought, you just punch until your opponent is down, kick until they're down. And but all of a sudden, I got exposed to the healing palms, and at the same time, he would demonstrate the martial application of the healing palms. And believe me, we all ended up like noodles in his hands, and he was like a block. He was just totally. He probably weighed 250 pounds, and his dantian was just, protruding like a 15 watermelons.
Big Buddha.
Yeah, big Buddha. And he would spin us like we were just like nobody. And that was just remarkable. But the most remarkable thing was when he would come to adjust you and correct you. When he touched you, you felt something like you've never felt before. And the touch had just rendered you correct. It wasn't just a touch to make you feel the energy, but the touch kind of aligned you immediately. And that's the highest experience you could have when you're being approached by a healing palm, is that it's not just that to feel the energy, but the energy is an energy of correction. And then after that, so those were all of the foundation, the Bagua foundation I learned from Quinsai Ron Zhou. And I didn't learn much forms. We walked a lot in circles. We learned all the Tiangans and a lot of the basically the Qigong Bagua foundation, and the circles. We did a lot of circle walking. We circle walked for forever, and I practiced for about 10 years, and then after Quinsai Ron Zhou, I went and studied with Hao Jiwa. She's one of Beijing Wushu team. She's actually a 5-time national champion of China, and she has an institute in Berkeley called Wushu West. Her American name is Patty Lee, and I studied with her for about 5 years, and I learned a lot of wushu there, and I learned a lot of the Bagua form from her. And but basically, I was actually putting 6 to 8 hours of Bagua a day, and along with all of my music practice. I mean, it hooked me that much, and then the journey I started since I didn't really get much. I would say knowledge from Quinsai Ron Zhou, because he didn't really speak in English, but he said one thing that stayed with me, and then that's what really kept me going over the years. He said, his wife said, on his behalf, that the practice will lead you, and which was what I've learned through music all throughout the time, is the practice will lead you. One note will lead you to the other, and and the cadences, and tension will lead you to harmony, and harmony will take you to places. So it kind of all came together in that sense, and that was I started when I was 27, and now it's about I would say that's about 33 years of Bagua, which is nonstop. I practice every day, not with the same with the same vigor as when I started, but I do put at least an hour and a half to 2 hours a day in a variety of different forms and stuff. I still don't really focus on form much because I feel like forms are directly related to traditions and locations, and I think when you are here present within the culmination of things, and you start to feel your own form, and based on the Qigong's and the stuff that you have worked to align your palms and align the center of your qi and your dantian, then your movements can be fully educational towards what you are practicing within yourself to lead you to that which the same thing, harmony and peace. And
unfortunately, our time is almost up. We have a little bit. We have about a little less than 10 minutes, and this is Talking Chi on KMUD. And I'm Javi here with Nona, and we're being guided here through Tony's journey. And what I'm hearing throughout all of this, I really wasn't expecting the mapping of sound and the experience of sound, but really what I'm hearing, which is amazing. I love to hear that. What I'm hearing is a journey of self-tuning, self-balancing. So kind of had we talked about regulating the mind, and I had this thought of like, oh, the mind is being tuned. The mind's being tuned. And then I was like, oh, wow, like I think you're actually regulating your spirit. You're retuning your spirit from a base, like a primal sort of place that it was, and that the body, mind, and spirit was attuned to in formative years. And all of your practices, your hours of practice, your sound, your music, your guitar, the Bagua, are all self-tuning, self-balancing, and regulating of the spirit through vibration practices.
Yeah, correct. That's when you're dealt, when you survive few blasts in your youth and and a bunch of gunshot wounds, and that was the only exposure you've had, your mind basically knows nothing but that. And as we know, our formative years are the most influential years in our lives. So in order to change that story and repattern the mind, it requires evolution greater than that which you have endured in your formative years. And I mean, I can only thank the great teachers that I've come across that have rebuilt and repatterned my mind, or actually exposed me to the idea that you can repattern your mind, and gave me the tools to work with, and repattern the body, repattern the way you look at the world, because it again, it doesn't look that great if you're looking at it from the actual basic realm, because it is conflicting, and you'd have to step up and you have to rise above the mundane in order to come to a place for which you can see where the higher vibration is working. And I guess sometimes it's really hard if the impetus is not there, and I think music gave me the impetus, because music has given me a sense of what it could be like. It's not just the grim reality, it's going across it and getting to a place of what it could be like. And I got to experience that in the most devastating times in my life, that I could actually come to a place of nirvana or samadhi through a practice. That was incredibly revealing that it's doable. And then along the way to grab many practices in order to maintain that, and that becomes a part of my daily life and not the other stuff. That's a tremendous commitment, but it's a worthy commitment. And I think humans, if you leave it up to humans at this juncture, from this point on, the only thing that is left is healing, because we're not spared. Toxicity and dissonance, and knowing and learning how to come to a place of harmony requires tremendous commitment.
I'm getting this vision of also from like the regenerative model, how the past and those formative years and that conditioning is like the soil or the compost to give life, to what you're manifesting today.
Oh, yeah. And thank you so much, Javi, for your interest in this, because it's been a real great joy to share the show with you, and we've had some amazing guests. And Nona, it's great to have you here today.
Yeah.
And we've done, and I think this is overall is really lifting the energy in every way possible, because we are tackling issues that are not easy to tackle, and based in the basics of martial arts, which is, most people think martial arts is really about defending yourself and the defensive or the offensive, but we have been bringing the idea of how martial arts can lead you to a greater lifestyle, and that's really the origin of it all. And
right, the shamanic practices, the healing practices. That's something I wanted to bring up was a friend of mine, also a Eastern medicine and philosophy practitioner, brought up this idea of the warrior's path, the warrior healer priest path. The warrior does all of the warrior things. The warrior has to heal self, heal others, go through that phase, post-warrior, and then after all of the healing, the warrior turns into the priest.
Oh, correct. Absolutely.
Can we take a second? We got about 2 minutes. Let's take 2 minutes. And going back to the thread of sound and music, introduce a little bit of the kirtan. And I think there's an event, because I saw something posted recently by you. There's an event happening in which you'll be being a part of and sharing kirtan.
Right. This is our community gathering, which happens at the Nielsen Ranch at our great brother Jay Moeller and Nauko Moeller, and we do it once a year, and they have a pool there, and a bunch of us gather and basically chant and do a variety of spiritual practices. Kirtan is using sacred vibrations to sacred syllables and vibrations in order to lift your heart and bring yourself to a greater feeling of devotion to greater spirit. And it's an Indian tradition, and basically we sing the names of God and the attributes of God, and each gods and goddesses. Each attribute has a different it evokes different feeling and different energy in the body. And as we know, like Shiva energy produces that fire that incinerates and destroys that which is not clean. And we have Krishna energy that brings in the heart and opens the heart to greater love, and so forth. So we practice that in order to kind of elevate our feelings from being so laden in the heart to being so free and so devotional in the heart. So that takes place on the last Sunday of July. I think it's July 29th. I'm not sure of the date exactly. And it starts at 2, and no, it's not a potluck, but do refer to Facebook so you can get directions how to get there. And Naoko does all the food, and she's an amazing Japanese temple. I don't know how you put it, but she's like the Devi of sattvic food, which is food of the highest vibration, and she's amazing. So I hope to see community people. Yeah,
Nona's face is lighting up. Well, thank you again. Thank you, Nona. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
We are wrapping up here. Thank you, listeners, for having us today. This is Talking Chi with Javi and Nona. We hope your Chi continues to flow smoothly. Until next time.
Aho.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.